Thank you so much for tuning in to Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard. Like I will say, like, and we'll go get into it with this topic. Like there are points where it definitely feels like it's getting easier, and then we reset with some other challenge, and you're like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
We'll figure this one out now.
So. that's where we're at. So
yeah.
But we had a good day. It was just the evening part got hard because that's usually like when Ryan, right when I start to feel that, Ryan is like off work
Ryan
and
steps in.
Yeah, but
how long is he gone for?
He'll be back tomorrow night, but it'll still be
good.
after bedtime because it's like a 6.5 hour drive.
Oof.
So
That's a long
yeah.
drive.
Yeah, he drove up there this morning and got at work at like 9:45 and then worked all day. Then they had happy hour. Though he's like, I had a Coke Zero because he's on this sober kick. I'm not that he had a problem. He just decided he wanted to quit alcohol, which is awesome. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, he's like, I'll wait till your birthday and we can have like some wine or something, which is in October, so it'll be a whole full year. But we'll see if he actually wants to have a drink or not when that time comes around. At this point, he's like determined because he's like, I don't know. He's past that point of like craving it or kind of wanting it. So he's just like, yeah. Says he feels really better. Cool. But yeah. So
I'm trying to do every other month of no sugar. Like I still do maple syrup and honey. So, it's still sugar, but I don't do like I'm trying not to do any of the added sugar stuff. Oh man, it's a challenge, but I'm trying to do that every other month to try to get a reset on it because it's like, man, I go crazy and I want to like slowly get into the routine of not wanting it so much.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's really hard. It's been so hard for me. Normally, I'm not a sweets person. With Weston, I crave savory stuff, and then this pregnancy, it's been like I need something sweet after I eat. So,
yes, I get that.
What I did, I have peanut butter that doesn't have sugar in it, and then Greek yogurt or just plain yogurt, and then I put honey in it, and I like whip it up, and it's like. Then I guess I do put. You don't have to put chocolate chips in it, but I put like some chocolate chips in it, and it tastes so good. So I have it just ready when I need a spoonful to crave, like so I don't eat. The other day, my mom had vanilla wafers out, and I started eating them, and then I was reading the ingredients, and I'm like. No, I can't. It tasted so good there in the moment. I was like, they have all this added stuff in it. Like, I don't need all this. So I had to hide it from myself.
Oh, I do the same. If it's not in view, I'm usually pretty good. But like if I see it, I'm like, oh, I got to eat that. My biggest weakness is rice. Right now, I'll get like a bowl of Rice Krispies cereal. And then I'll get a scoop of peanut butter and I'll throw some chocolate chips in the cereal. And then I'll scoop the Rice Krispies and chocolate chips with the peanut butter.
Oh, that's so good.
It's like a terrible weakness of mine. But
yeah, I used to make dessert with that, like with all those ingredients. But
yeah,
I don't know. I do the rice cakes, the lightly salted ones that are just the brown rice cakes. And then I'll do the peanut butter and all that on it.
Yeah.
So it's crunchy. But anyways,
I love it.
Should we dive into our topic today?
Yeah. So today,
but first,
sorry.
We are your host.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I forgot we didn't do that.
Yeah, we just roll with it.
Yeah.
By now, hopefully, you know who we are, but
maybe
not.
Where are your hosts? I'm Lisa. I'm a girl mom to 2 girls.
And I'm Danielle, and I'm a stay-at-home mom to a rambunctious, cute little boy, and pregnant with another little boy.
Yay! Okay, so today I've said it here before, but I get the skim every day in the morning, and it's like the top 3 stories of the day previous, and then it also does like the other 5 interestings, and one of them they sent was from usatoday.com, And the title was Millennials Are Mocked for Gentle Parenting, but Have They Been Right All Along? And so I was like, ooh, I'm interested in this. And I started reading the article. It's really long, but basically the way the article starts is there was a mom of 2 girls who has a 6 and a 3-year-old, and she started hearing yelling between her kids. And she's like, she was like, do I step in or do I just let them do it? And she's like, I'm just going to let them do it and see what happens. And she said, I noticed pretty clearly my older daughter was using the language we use every day. I was so excited about how well they were doing, like in their disagreement. And she said, gentle parenting is emotionally exhausting, but these little wins carry her through the hard days. And then it goes on to talk a little bit about the parenting style popularized by millennials has been criticized by older generations who argue parents are too permissive with their children. But child psychologists say they're seeing a shift in children and their emotional intelligence that seems to suggest gentle parenting might be working. So Danielle had sent something earlier in the week that she was having a disagreement with her mom on the way that she was doing some parenting. And I was like, oh, this is a perfect article.
Yeah, this hits home right now. Kind of what we're going through. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Dr. Elizabeth Ortiz Schwartz said, as a generation, the younger kids are more insightful with mental health concerns, more specific with the emotional language they're using, and communicate it effectively with others. And I think it's so interesting because we have been attempting gentle parenting, and it is a really big struggle for my husband and for his parents to watch because of the way he was parented. And they get really frustrated that we don't kind of lay down the law a lot more with them. And there are times where I want to be like, all right, let's see if we do it your way and see what happens. But I notice, like, when that happens, like Hannah just like wide-eyed, like, why did I just get yelled at? Why did I just get in trouble? Like, I don't understand. And like one of the biggest things is my mother-in-law, whenever they're crying, she tells them to stop. And I'm like, it's okay to cry. Like, it's okay to cry. It's okay to get your emotions out. We don't want to bottle these. And I like was saying this while my mother-in-law heard me, and she was like, whatever. And then one day Aubrey was crying and she goes, stop. And Hannah turns to my mother-in-law and goes, Nana, it's okay that she cries. And I was like, oh God. She yelled at my mother-in-law, and I was like, it is okay that she cries.
Yeah, these are facts. Also, she's little. I don't know.
She's a year old. Yeah.
Yeah.
She's crying because she can't.
Babies cry.
Something.
Toddlers cry. Yeah. Oh gosh. Adults cry.
Right? And it's okay to cry. That's what I've been trying to tell Han, because like Han will go around now, and anytime Aubrey's crying, she'll say, stop. And I'm like, remember, it's okay to cry. And she's like, she looks at me all confused, like, wait, I'm confused. Like, why are you telling me it's okay to cry? But then I'm being told to stop crying by other people. Like, she's like getting to that point where it's like, and I was talking to my friend that I ran into today, and she's like, yeah, anytime somebody tells her to do something, that's the rule. And we have to obey by that rule. So then it's a really big challenge, because I'm like, I don't want her to be around anybody but me right now, because what I say goes, It's like not the right thing. But she's a firstborn rule follower for sure. So
right.
Yeah.
Well, I've noticed, I don't know if it's a boy thing or just because he's a part of my husband, like DNA. I don't know, but when I tell him not to do something, he does it more and thinks it's funny. Yes. So it makes it harder. Like, so I tried not to give attention to some of if he's not hurting himself or others, or like destroying something, I will either try to redirect or just ignore it. And then therefore I've been like called passive, and like that I'm not teaching him the rules and all the things. And I'm like, the more I give attention to it, like whether it's negative or positive, and we're taught this when a teacher too, like the reason why kids act out in school is because they're getting that attention, whether it's like positive or negative, but they're getting attention that they probably don't do at home. Toddlers are the same way. They're like, oh, you stopped and paid attention to me because you were busy doing something, and now you're paying attention. So I'm going to keep doing that. So I've heard that you have to be like almost not over dramatic, but like when they're doing something good or normal, just like a basic thing, making it such a big deal. So they're like, oh, so you're giving them like positive reinforcement and that positive attention. But sometimes it's hard because it's just like, okay, he's doing so good, but we've been trying to verbalize it. We're like, wow, you used your fork so well. Like, just random things.
We do that too.
Yeah. But it's exhausting. Sometimes it's like, I just want to eat my meal in silence. Just eat it.
It's so exhausting. And I agree with you, like, in a few different points that you made, but like we struggle with it because it's like, so I had heard from a previous therapist that I had, and she said, unfortunately, men want to raise their children so that they're good adults. But from 0 to 11 years old, you just need to nurture. And then the rules, like, to make them good adults starts when they're 11. And I was like, wow, that's a long time. Like 11 is a long time. Right. And like, I had that conversation with Brandon, and I was like, this is what she said. And he's like, it's so hard for him to like understand that and comprehend that, because he just wants to make them good kids. And I'm like, yeah, but you see how when you react this way, she loses it, and it's a way bigger battle than if you sit and you talk to her, you get on her level, you sit on the floor, you go eye to eye with her and you say, tell me what's going on. And there are times where she's like, I'm not talking to you. It doesn't matter what you say. I'm not going to get near you. But it's still like, okay, she eventually will come around and she'll be like, you know what, Daddy, I didn't like that you did this to me. And he's like, oh, like he's surprised. Like, I didn't even realize I did that or said that. And so thank you for telling me. And watching them have those interactions, I'm like, oh, my heart, this is so great,
Yeah.
But on the flip side, when he has like his low patience moments, it's like, oh, take it back. It's hard.
Yeah, it's so hard, and I lose my patience too. I follow these girls on Instagram, Big Little Feelings, and they mentioned something similar. It's like, we were saying that sometimes she doesn't want anything to do with you, and it's like, okay, I can see that you need your space and time alone. Mommy will be over here when you're ready to talk, or if you need a hug. But like sometimes kids just need their space, or sometimes they want to be hugged.
Totally.
Sometimes they want to talk through it, and sometimes they don't. So, but the biggest thing is not trying to teach while they're having a tantrum is what I've learned, because when they're in meltdown mode, they're in crisis mode, their brain's not thinking about like anything. So
no.
Yeah, maybe you can have that conversation later.
I follow them too, and I've been trying to revisit after 20 minutes after we're better, after a tantrum, and I'll be like, hey, do you remember when you did this? Like, this is what, it's hard though. Like, it's the same thing, when kids are like getting awareness of their body, and Aubrey like gets really excited and then she'll hit me and I make reactions. And so then Hannah's like, oh, well, if I do that, I'll get a reaction too. Even though she knows and she's learned not to do that stuff, she's reverting back because, like you said, any attention's good attention for her.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, how do I start to, it's hard parenting two different, like when kids are on two different, concept bases, like understanding different things. It's a really big struggle.
And when it's even harder is when you live in a house with 5 adults. So, so there's reactions. I'm like, please don't give that a reaction. And they're like, well, he's going to hurt himself. I'm like, he's fine. Like, natural consequences. He's not going to hurt himself. I don't know, like earlier, he was just like on a different level. And he was like slamming his head into the recliner. It's soft. And he kept looking at me, waiting for me to have a reaction. So I kind of like walked away and wasn't paying attention. But then sometimes he'll do stuff like that. Like, don't do that. You'll hurt yourself. Don't do that. No. So I have people that are overusing the word no. And I mention that and they just think I'm crazy. I'm like, they'll get desensitized to it. Yes, we need to say no if they're going to touch the hot stove or whatever. Like, they're in danger. But like, let's explain, like, I don't know. get down on their level and explain why they can't, or how something's used or whatever. It's so hard.
And this is like, this article goes on to say, like, it's so much work as the kids are growing up. And then once they get to like a point where, like, I think they said, like, I don't even remember the age, but like even this lady who had a 3 and a 6-year-old, like they're starting to get it. And you're like, well, that's really rewarding for all that hard work that you've put in. Like, it's harder parenting. They say there's no doubt about it. Like, you're giving so much effort to try to make them understand why we don't stab a knife into our stomach.
Right.
Stuff like that. But I'm the same way. Like, and like, I know it makes people uncomfortable because things have changed so much. And like, I do watch a lot of those videos and I read a lot of stuff, and it's like, let them, let them. And there's a book, the Let Them Theory, but there's a book out there that like it talks about like, like Aubrey loves to climb. We have like one of those little wooden ladder things, and then you can slide. We had it out, and my in-laws were here, and then my mom was here a week later, and they were like terrified of her on this thing. And it's not super tall, but like when you fall off, it doesn't feel good, but they were like, what, how can you let her do that without you as being right there? I'm like, because she does learn. I mean, she is the most accident prone child ever. She flings herself off of things, and she's got so many scrapes and cuts and bleeding and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, but she gets back up and she does it again. And it's like, we don't do those big reactions of be careful, be careful, be careful, be careful. And it's really hard, right? Like, it's hard not to say that.
I know. Yep. So it's been extremely hard for me too. For example, we went out to eat the other night, and it was too close to his bedtime. I should have just been like, no, but it was my idea because I'm pregnant. I'm like, I want to go eat. And I don't feel like cooking. So it was my mom and my sister. And Weston being loud doesn't faze me. Like on the plane, I'm fine with it. Like whatever, he's gonna do what he's gonna do. And like I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm just like, it is what it is, and like I'm gonna do my best to like contain it. But it wasn't fussy. He wasn't throwing a tantrum. We weren't at a fancy like 5-star restaurant, and he was just being loud. He's going blah, 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 and then he was getting like a little bit louder. And I was showing him things in my purse. And as soon as he got his food, he was quiet. He was fine. And he was eating, but he was just, he was getting close to bedtime. He was tired. So that was my mistake. There was barely anyone in the restaurant either. But just my mom's face was turning red and was like embarrassed because he was being so loud. And I felt bad for her. But I was just like, he's fine. Like, he's not, like, there's a point I would take him out, and this isn't it. But she was mad because I said I didn't tell him no and to be quiet and to use your inside voice. But I'm like, I don't know if he'll get inside voice. I'm like, he's just exploring. Maybe I should have said, okay, we got to use our inside voice. But I know I've done that before, and he gets louder because he's so defiant, because he is my husband's son. You tell my husband to do something, he'll do it completely opposite, backwards, just because you suggested something. So it's like, this is what I get. But I don't know. I heard if they're just like expressing their voice, like, let them basically. I don't know. So it's just like, I had a hard time with that.
I have such a hard time with it too, because he's 2. It's not like he's 12. No. He's 2, and he's testing boundaries, which is what they're supposed to do. Like, I understand, like, it's hard, because I remember reading something and it was like, okay, well, realistic expectations is what you should live by. Like, yes, you're going to gentle parent, but that doesn't mean you can expect your 2-year-old or your 3-year-old to sit at a table for 20 minutes. Like, it's just not going to happen. And so, it's such a challenging thing, because it's almost like I want to be like, set the expectations for my parents and my in-laws. Like, anytime we're going to go do something, like, okay, yes, you have this plan, but I'm going to tell you right now what's going to happen. Right. Like, it's so interesting when you start to like understand your kid. And like you said, if you tell them to be quiet, that volume's going up. Right.
Yeah.
Like, so you knew how to handle that. And like, yes, your mom was upset, but it's like, okay, Mom, how do you expect that this situation will get better? Like, what do you want me to, like, what do you think is going to work? Do you just think no is going to work? Because it doesn't work in my household. Maybe it works in yours. I don't know.
Yeah. So Weston's to the point now where he's just screaming, no. I mean, that's normal, but it's like he says no a lot. I don't know. It's been hard. And I feel like it's pulled some, I don't know, some of my childhood back up. For example, like, he grabbed a Sharpie in my dad's truck because he was playing in the truck for a second. He grabbed a Sharpie and opened it. And my dad grabbed it. Of course, we don't want him to Sharpie in the truck. But then he looked at him and said, bad. That's bad. And I'm like, it's bad because you left a Sharpie in there? He was just exploring. It made me so sad. I'm like, no wonder why I felt like a bad kid. You mess up. You're bad. But so I was just like, he's just exploring. That was in your truck. So like, you know, it wasn't his fault. It was there. Like, yes, I don't want him to draw on your truck with a Sharpie. But he's not bad because he found it. Like, he was like, oh, what's this? Like, I know I can take the lid off of it. I know this marks. But
it's so hard. Like, and that's what, like, so really quickly to jump back to the article, it says gentle parenting is a parenting style that's rooted in understanding, empathy, respect, and boundaries. And that it says it's treating children in the way you wished you had been treated by parents and caregivers when you were a child. Do you think that is an influence of why you parent this way?
I think so, yeah. Yep. For sure. But I will say, I will be completely transparent with you that, like, I'm not perfect, and sometimes I do feel like I get frustrated, or I'm like, like,
same.
And then I like literally go to bed thinking about how bad of a mom I was because I raised my voice, like, or just said like, I just need you to listen, or like, stop that. And I'm like, but then when I do it, as soon as I do it, I'm like, oh no. Like, no. Yeah, I'm like, that's not the parent I want to be. But like, we're all human, and it's so easy to get frustrated. But and then I'll feel guilty for it for days. Like,
I'm the same way. And I think I got better after I had one really bad interaction with Hannah. So I think Aubrey had just been born, and we were down at my parents' house, and she was really starting to rebel because she was like getting jealous, and she was refusing to go to sleep one night. So my dad was trying his parenting style of making her stay awake as long as she possibly could without sitting down, and she had to keep her butt up against their glass sliding door. She wasn't allowed to talk, and she wasn't allowed to do anything. I said, Dad, she's 2 years old. This is not appropriate for a 2-year-old. This is appropriate for maybe like a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old.
Yeah.
So then I told him, I said, she's going to wake up at her normal time. Just because you think this is like, she's not going to sleep in. He's like, oh, she'll sleep in. So then she went nuts the next morning because she had no sleep, because my dad was like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to do this stay up thing. She anger peed. She used to do that all the time. Like, she would pee on the surfaces, like all that. And she was potty trained at this point. So she knew not to do it. And I lost it. I grabbed her arm and I rushed her out of the room. I brought her into my dad's room and I started screaming at him. He was still sleeping at 10:30 in the morning. And I was like, if you're going to do this again, you're waking up with her and you're dealing with the wrath of this. And I was screaming at him while she's standing there. And I'm like, it was awful. Like, everybody around was like, what's happening? What's going on? And Han went out and like got on my father-in-law's lap. They were visiting too. And he like let her nap on him. And I was like bawling all day. I was like, I'm such a terrible parent. I can't believe I did this. And my father-in-law was like, I don't see the problem. Like, because that's how they parented. But I was also like, she's going to hate me forever. And like, as soon as she woke up from the nap, she didn't know that it even happened. She came right up to me and was like, Mommy, how's it going? And I was like, oh, you still love me.
Right. I know.
It's like, as much as we do have a theory, like a way, doesn't mean we're perfect. Right?
Yeah. People are going to look back at us and like 100 years from now, you gentle parented?
Yeah.
I don't know. No, there's a lot of research behind, I mean, at least like, well, there's research on timeouts and spankings and how those don't work and how they affect us. So it's like, okay, now we need a different direction. So I don't know. It's just like, we'll see, but I get it because I feel like I had to be happy all the time. I had to, if I had emotions, I was dramatic. Like, So it's like you have to be, can't cry. I don't know. So it's just like,
yeah,
I'm a very emotional person.
Me too.
And I have a lot of anxiety and stress. And I think, I mean, a lot of that stems from, the way I'm raised.
Yeah.
Sorry
not
if I'm
being
whispering.
able to express yourself the way you wanted to, or not, like you have to be tough and you have to be blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like, it's interesting because like this article goes on to say, though some may confuse it with permissive parenting, another parenting style that imposes few rules and discipline. Gentle parenting is a kinder version of authoritative parenting characterized by a close, nurturing relationship between caregivers and their children. And I do feel like there are times where people are like, oh, you're so permissive, like you let them do whatever they want. I said, no, we have rules. Like we do have rules, and we will like gently remind them the first couple of times, like, hey, we don't allow food on the carpet. If you continue to come on the carpet with your food, I'm going to take away your food, and you can have it back when you come off the carpet. And like, instead of kind of doing one of those things where you immediately rip the food out of their hands, like we're trying really hard to stop ripping things out of hands, because then she'll go do that to her classmates or to her sister, and you're like, it's so hard though. So hard when you just are like, you're not listening, right? Rip this out of your hands. But it's like, it's just it's seriously, and like some stuff I read on here was like, unfortunately, it's relearning things, because the way you were parented would teach you to do something in a different way and have less patience, and this takes an ungodly amount of patience.
Oh yeah, I would say I'm triggered pretty often. So I'm usually breathing through it, like, and I don't know why I'm triggered, but it's just like, probably because I'm like, man, I'd be in so much trouble right now. Right? If I were you, I'd be in so much trouble. Yeah. But yeah, same thing. Like, there's ways about it that I find that works. Like, for same kind of example that you gave, at nighttime, Weston would want to climb off the bed and not read the books. And like, we're like, hey, as soon as you get off the bed, we're going night night and we're done reading books.
Yep.
And it took a few nights of that. As soon as he got down, he then realized, okay, you're serious. If I get down, you're not going to finish books and I have to go to bed sooner. So he tried to slip off today. He's a lot better at nighttime with Ryan. I don't know. If we're both there, he won't go down easily. If it's just him, he goes down great. If it's me, he doesn't go down easy. I guess because I'm his caregiver, like I'm with him 24/7. But tonight he tried to slip down. I'm like, okay, if you get down, books are done and we're going night night. And he like, no night night. And so he climbed back up and then let me finish the book. So I was like, man, this works. Like,
it does work.
So yeah. So just setting those boundaries and not consequences, but I mean, I guess they are kind of consequences, but
that's what we do.
They're not punishments.
Yeah.
But
well, that's the hardest part. Like I was listening to something on Instagram, and it was like, try not taking things away, but like, if you stay in your crib, you're going to get 3 books, and, instead of saying, if you get out of your crib, you get only 2 books. And like, I all the time am like, all right, if we're not going to listen, I'm going to take away a book. And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So like, she's listening, right? Then can I do that? But it's like harder when it's like, oh, if you listen, you'll still get your 3 books. Like I have a hard time phrasing it that way.
Yeah. Well, I take things away. Well,
I do too.
So if they're throwing their toy, obviously in an aggressive way, I'm like, okay, if you throw that again, then we're going to lose that toy for today. Yeah. And that's another thing they say is they need related consequences.
Yes.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, if you do that, then you can't have dessert later, or we're going to not do, then they don't get it like hours later. They're like, why don't I get ice cream? So it has to be relative or related. So, so I'll take it away, and then he gets all upset, but then he'll go play with a different toy and forget about it. And then later he'll see it up on the counter, and then I'll give it back to him. But yeah.
I had that conversation with Brandon the other day, because Hannah leaves her shoes everywhere, and so do I. I've always done that. I've always been that person. And so he got so fed up, and he picked up a pair of her shoes, and if you don't take these back to where they belong right now, I'm throwing them away and you're never wearing them again. And I was like, wait a second.
If you say it, you have to mean it.
That's exactly what I said. I said, you have to do it. And he's like, oh, I'll do it. And I was like, well, that's not a reasonable punishment, especially because are you throwing all my shoes away that I leave everywhere? He's like, no. And I was like, exactly. So like, you can't have rules for her that aren't rules for us. And she's also 3. We are just working on this, but you can't do that. And he like, and when I like was coaching him, if you will, he was like, okay, that's fair. Like, I realize it's a ridiculous reaction, but I'm sick of them being everywhere. And I'm like, I know, like, I know.
Right.
It's hard. It's hard, like, cause like, I said to him, like, I feel like I'm always yelling at him and I feel bad. And like, I've called him my 3rd kid many times. That doesn't go over well when I do that, obviously, but I feel bad, but it's also like, I do a lot of research. Like, I watch a lot of videos, I read a lot of things about like different styles and different ways to parent. And I'm like, I would love for our girls to be parents and like this. And for them to always be like, you know what, my dad let me tell him the truth, even though he knew he could get me in trouble for this. Like, you know, we've been trying to work with Hannah because she's gotten into this lying stage. And I looked it up and I was like, that is very common because it's like they start to realize that other people have emotions too. And they're trying to test out what your emotion is to like whatever they say. And and it's so challenging of like, okay, like when we were kids, if we lied, we got in a lot of trouble. So then we wouldn't tell our parents anything. Right. And I don't want them to ever get to that point where they're like, oh, I can't tell my parents, because I think a lot of issues come from that too. And I don't, not to say I want to hear like every single thing about their lives, but you know, I want them to be able to feel like they can talk to me.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And that's kind of where I'm at too. I want Weston to be able to come to me and not be afraid that, I mean, obviously there'll be consequences depending on what it was, but it's not going to be like, I'm not going to yell at you. Like, we're going to talk it through. We're going to figure it out. Like, for example, I'm in the same house as my family, so I have to be careful. But, yeah, I needed someone to come pick me up when I was underage and intoxicated. And I got in big trouble. Instead of them coming picking me up, they called the police to come pick me up. But they took me home. The one time, yeah, you call me if you need anything. And it didn't work out for me. So that's what I don't want. So I want Weston, if he's in trouble or if he finds himself in a situation that he doesn't want to be, like, I would be proud of him for calling me for help. And obviously I would be there. And yes, we would talk about it later. Like,
right.
When if like he's clear-headed or like I've calmed down, and then kind of talk about it and then be like, okay, but also there will be consequences. So we might take something away that at that point, like, that he enjoys doing for a while, or I don't know, the extra cleaning, who knows what it would be, or what it would. And I'm just theoretically thinking. So, but hopefully he's not going to be like that, but I'm sure he will.
Yeah.
Part of me and Ryan, I would say I was more wild and Ryan's just more, what's the word? Not defiant, but maybe defiant. What's the word when they don't do stuff that you want them to do?
Yeah, defiant.
It left my brain. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Brain's not working.
It's so easy to say right now, right? Like, because our kids are not in that stage where we're having to deal with that. But it's like,
right.
You know, it's so interesting too, talking to other parents and kind of taking the bits that you like and the bits that you don't like and being like, oh, I don't like that they did that, so let's not do that. Or I like that they did that. Like, I'll tell you, with Hannah, all of Hannah's sleep troubles for the entire last year, we were talking to some parents and they were like, oh yeah, like we finally gave in and just put a sleeping bag next to the side of our bed and just let her sleep there. And so we started doing that like probably maybe a month ago now, and it's night and day for us. Like, we can sleep and it's worth it. And I am like, I just needed to hear another parent say like, yeah, it's okay, you're not, you know, we're doing that and it's okay. But it's hard because it feels like every single thing you do feels like it's going to affect them in one way or the other. And they're, you know, can you come back from it? can you walk it back? Like with Aubrey, she can't remember stuff right now, but Hannah remembers. And I'm like, okay, like I have to watch everything I say and I do, because like she throws our parenting back in our face all the time. So it's like, even if you feel like you make one misstep, it's like she'll remind you of that. And that's really hard to be parenting under that tight microscope, you know? So anyway.
That's tough. Well, we just have to remind ourselves that we're not perfect. We're going to mess up. And as long as we're just trying our best, I think that's all we can do. And hopefully not screw our kids up in the process.
Well, and that's so it's interesting, because they talk about authoritarian parenting, which is defined by strict rules and punishment, and it's still by far the main parenting style in the US and the UK. And I was like, that's so interesting, because like I don't know what a lot of the people that we hang out with and see their kids, what they do behind closed doors. Like, you know, you're a different parent in front of people than you are behind closed doors a lot of time. And so I'm like, oh, I wonder if how many people in the circle that we have authoritarian, you know, styles of parenting when we're not around, and how many do gentle parenting or permissive parenting. It's very interesting.
Right.
So,
yeah, you don't want to be permissive. I grew up in authoritarian. I didn't even know all the difference until I read that book, Raising Mentally Strong Kids, by Dr. What's his name? Do you remember?
Amen? Was it Amen?
It's a good one. It's a good one. Yeah, I felt like it's Dr. Amen. But I felt like I learned a lot about myself, to be honest. I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So
that's the hardest
it's a good
part,
book.
and I think I talk to a lot of people about this, like watching the way people interact with me, like whether it be somebody at the grocery store, a coworker, somebody I see on an airplane. I'm like, oh, you were parented like this. Like I do that to everybody. I'm like, oh. And it's probably terrible, but it's like, you know, they talk about how important it is for us to heal as parents before we're going to be good parents to them. You know,
kind of like figure out what Ryan and Bryce's parents were like, because I mean, they're pretty well rounded, but they've never saw their parents fight ever. Well, I don't know about Bryce, but Ryan said he's never seen them have an argument.
I talk to Bryce about it like literally every time we're together, and I say, oh, so what was it like? Because like having met them a few times, I'm like, they're like the best. They're the coolest people ever. I love them so much. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, so what was your childhood like? He's like, well, you know, it's interesting. Like I've only seen them fight once. And that time, because we'd never seen them fight, was terrifying to me. And not in the sense like he was terrified they were going to break up, like kind of one of those things, because he'd never seen it. And it was so devastating. And he remembers calling his mom because she left the house and was like, are you coming back? And I was like, oh my gosh. He's like, but to be honest, like they were awesome parents. And it's interesting being around people. Like one of our other girlfriends, Kristen, who was on the podcast, it was like, oh, my mom was the best. She was like the best mom ever. And I'm like, it's crazy to hear that, because of how much I dog on my parents. And so I'm like, oh, I feel bad, but like, what did they do? Like, give me all the tips, because I want to know how to grow up and like where my kids want to hang out with me, right? Like I enjoy hanging out with Brandon's parents and playing games with them and stuff like that. You know, obviously the parenting stuff is tough and disagreements. And same with my parents. Like I love playing games with them and doing stuff, but I am very critical of how they parented me, you know? So yeah, that's, and this is what this is. We want to grow kids who don't need therapy, kids that have relationships that last as adults with good mental health. And I'm like, that is literally what I say all the time. Like, I just want my girls to not have to go to therapy, even though therapy's fine. Like, I want them to have we'll be able to work through all of that stuff with other people, but also with themselves. Like, be able to lean on each other for that would be awesome too. So, yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Ryan and I came from two different households for sure, and sometimes it slips back up, and I feel like, especially being here lately, just with so many people and being pregnant, and just my hormones are raging, I would say, because I feel like I get rageful a little bit. And I called him, I said, you're being an asshole. Sorry, I'm cussing. And I shouldn't have said it, and I never cuss at him. And I'm like, oh, as soon as I said it, I'm like, what is wrong with me? But then he like told me later, he's like, listen, I don't care if you cuss at me. He was like, but please don't do it in front of our son, because then he's with you. His perception of me, of himself through my eyes, he's like going to see that. And then he's going to think, I'm like, I was crying. I'm like, you're right. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm like, I'm sorry. I was like, there's just a lot going on right now with, being here, like just not having a house right now, not knowing if he's going to get a job, if we're going to, I don't know, like where I'm going to give birth, and then just like my hormones. And I'm a person who needs space, and it's been kind of hard lately. So
yeah,
I just feel like a pent up bronco. I don't know. I'm just thinking of an animal that needs like space, and that's me. I don't know.
I think you're also in a fairly new situation. Like, it's not like you guys have been there for a year. And so you're finding your ways, you're finding your routine, and that makes it really challenging to A, take care of yourself, but then B, take care of your son, and then a baby too. Like, there's just a lot on your plate while you're trying to handle all the juggling of everything going on at once. And I do think that that's why, it is nice to have stability, but also like you guys said, you want to make sure you're making the right move of when you do move and you do buy a house and you do want to do that kind of stuff. We didn't address that because in the past episode we said you bought a house.
Well, yeah, we backed out. They weren't going to fix anything. So that was our way to get out. We just said, okay, we're backing out. But also we were like thinking about it, and we're like, okay, let's make sure that you for sure have this job, or also can apply other places, so we have options. So hopefully he can apply for the job in like 3 weeks. And so we probably know something about a month and a half. Nice. It's just, I think we were jumping the gun because we both want our space. So, and it's just hard. But it's been great. Like I said earlier before we started, Weston was having a hard time going down, and he was calling for his GG, and he laid right down for her, and like she put him down. So it was kind of nice because she could tell I was stressed, and I was like almost in tears. I'm like, I don't know. He doesn't want me to pick him up. He doesn't want me to cover him up. I'm like, he's just mad. Yeah. But probably because like Ryan's not here, and that's his routine is with Ryan. So it's just,
that's what our daycare teacher for Aubrey sent out an email today and was like, I don't think you guys understand how important routine is for kids this age. Like, it is so important for them. So try to stay on routines with them. And I am not a routine person. Like, I love spontaneity. I love to be able to go and do whatever whenever I want. And that's really hard because it's not fair to them that just because I want that, that's what I want them to be able to do that too, So yeah, it's a challenge. It's for sure a challenge. So I thought this was interesting. So it says, I'm not going to go much longer because we've been going a while, but some caregivers who self-identify as gentle parents use techniques characteristic of authoritarian parenting, while others lean more permissive, which I thought was interesting to say that gentle parenting can have influences of both ways, because like in my opinion, gentle parenting is just a notch above permissive parenting. But the way they describe it, I'm like, oh, that makes me feel better. So that like when I do step out once in a while, it's like, yeah, but 90% or 80%, 75% of the time you are a gentle parent and you're doing it this way. But sometimes you do like to keep them safe, right? Like you don't want to get hit by a car. I'm going to be authoritarian in that circumstance, right? So.
Yeah. I think people have the misconception of like gentle parenting. I'm just, for example, like a kid's melting down in Target laying on the floor, and you're like, what's wrong? Like, why do you feel this way? Or I don't think it's that. I mean, it could be. You won't see me doing that. If they're having a tantrum, I'm probably going to throw them over my shoulder and just leave. And we're out.
See, and
if that happens.
I'm the opposite with that. Like, I know it's going to be worse if I engage. Yeah. So I kind of just watch it happen. It's like, so it was interesting. I'm trying to remember where we were. We were at a store, and I was with Hannah and Aubrey. And Aubrey right now thinks it's really funny to scream as loud as she can, like in a funny way. Like she thinks it's really funny. So then Hannah, like I'll like kind of look at her and she'll start smirking at me. Aubrey will smirk at me to see if I'm going to have a reaction. And then Hannah will do it. And then Aubrey will do it. And they'll just go back and forth screaming. And we were in a store and like, you could tell people around me were like, some of them were like laughing, like genuinely thought it was hilarious. And others were like, can you keep your kids down? And I was like, if I try to stop this, it gets way worse.
Oh,
just like you were saying, like,
yeah,
as much as you're uncomfortable that my kids are doing that, I'm sorry. If you know how to parent better than I do, and you know how to get my girls to stop, please do. I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm really sorry that your shopping experience is being ruined.
Yeah. Weston would do that too. He would scream in the store, but it was like out of just finding his voice and excitement. It wasn't like a tantrum or anything. And it's just like, I just let it happen because I needed to go grocery shopping. Yeah, I try to redirect. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't. Like I'm like, oh, look at this, or hey, can you hold this? Like handing him something for the grocery, and then he tries to like bite it. Everything goes in his mouth. Still at 2 years old.
It is hard. It's really hard. So it's interesting because then they go on in this article and they say what isn't working about gentle parenting, and they say though gentle parenting may be working for kids, it may be at the cost of parents' mental health. Child development experts said this parenting style can be a time intensive and emotionally exhausting. And it's like, yes, like it would be easier if I was authoritarian and my kids were just terrified of me, so they never stepped out of line and they were too afraid to cry and all that kind of stuff. That would probably be easier. But I don't want that. I don't want that. You know, and they do say that gentle parenting, the goal is for you to be able to have conversations with your kids, like honest conversations about their feelings, and that they want to continue to be, you know, not friends with you, but on good terms with you all the way through their adulthood. And I'm like, that is my goal. That's my goal for sure. Yeah.
Same. I mean, we already have a lot to deal with social media. I about said special media. It's kind of special.
It is kind of special. I was listening to a Facebook. There's a book that just came out from, she was an I don't know if she was considered an executive level, but she was higher up in Facebook. And she was talking about how she found out that they were advertising weight loss and certain things to like girls in the range of like 13 to 15. Anytime they deleted a selfie off of Facebook, they would target them with those ads. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful I didn't have social media back then, because I would have been targeted so hard. And it's like, oh man, I'm that special media, man. Get it out of here.
Get it out of here. Nobody needs that.
No. Well, yes. So anyways, I mean, I think we did a lot of brain dumping.
And I didn't cry, so that's good. I actually laughed, so I feel like I needed this.
Yeah, always. I always feel better with these. Like, that's what people have asked. They're like, oh, you're still doing the podcast? I'm like, I'm going to keep going until Danielle tells me no more, because I really enjoy being able to just get it out there and like get things off my chest and talk about, you know, what's working for you, what's not working for you, and what's working for me, and vice versa. So, yeah.
Exactly. And to make all of our listeners, all 12 of you, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah. But that you're not alone, that we're all in this together, and we may do things differently. You know, none of us are the same, but we're all in the same boat though.
Yeah. So, Yep, exactly. So, you know, gentle parenting is what's working now. We'll see if it continues to work. And I'm hopeful the fruits of our labor come out and my kids like me at teenage years, because I was terrible to my parents and I am expecting that karma to bite me in the butt. But this article gave me hope that if I let them be, you know, gentle parented, that I have a chance that they're going to like me when they're teenagers. Cross our fingers.
All right. We'll check back in 15, 20 years.
That gives me the chills. I'm not ready for that parenting time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thanks all for listening, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of Mom Jeans, trying to fit into motherhood. Thank you again so much for listening to us. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please consider giving us 5 stars so other mothers out there like you can find us and listen. If you would like, you could follow us on any of our socials at Mom Jeans the Podcast. If you have questions, would like to send us your birth story, or give us suggestions or things that you would like to hear, please email us at hello@momjeansthepodcast.com. See you next week.